Chasing approval is a trap many of us fall into, often without even realizing it. It begins innocently enough, seeking validation from those around us, wanting to be liked, respected, or accepted. But as time goes on, this desire to please others can become all-consuming. It can overshadow our ability to make decisions for ourselves, to trust our own instincts, and to live authentically. The problem with chasing approval is that it's an endless pursuit. It's like trying to hit a moving target. No matter how much effort you put in, you'll never reach it. And even if you do, it won't last. The approval you seek from others is temporary, conditional, and constantly shifting. The people around us, whether they're family, friends, colleagues, or even strangers, are themselves constantly changing. Their opinions are shaped by their own experiences, emotions, and biases. What one person approves of today may be something they no longer value tomorrow. This shifting landscape means that no matter how much energy and attention you pour into gaining approval, it's always fleeting. And as you chase that ever-moving target, you become increasingly frustrated, disillusioned, and exhausted. This pursuit of approval creates a cycle where your worth and sense of identity are dependent on others. You begin to look outside yourself for validation, and the more you look, the less you feel you have. This can lead to a sense of inadequacy, as though you're never enough because someone's opinion always seems to contradict your own. Even when you do receive praise or acknowledgement, there's a nagging feeling that it's not enough or it wasn't the right approval. You may feel elated in the moment, but that sense of validation quickly fades, leaving you searching for more. The deeper issue here is that by constantly chasing approval, we become disconnected from our true selves. We start living for others, trying to meet their standards, fulfill their expectations, and live up to their ideals. This disconnect is one of the main reasons why so many people feel lost, dissatisfied, or unfulfilled despite achieving external success. You can have all the accolades, the recognition, and the material rewards, but if they are not aligned with your own values and desires, they won't bring you lasting happiness or peace. You'll continue to feel empty, always striving for something that seems just out of reach. This constant need for validation also leads to a sense of fear and insecurity. When your sense of self-worth is based on the approval of others, the fear of rejection becomes overwhelming. You become afraid to take risks, to step out of your comfort zone, and to make bold decisions, because you fear what others will think of you. You may avoid speaking your truth, following your passions, or pursuing your goals if you believe it will result in criticism or disapproval. This fear traps you in a cycle of conformity where you only take action that fits within the narrow boundaries of what others accept. In many ways, this pursuit of approval mirrors the ways in which we're socialized. From a young age, we're taught to seek validation. Through grades, achievements, appearances, and behavior, our worth is often measured by how well we meet the expectations of others. While it's natural to seek acceptance and belonging, the problem arises when we lose sight of our own voice in the process. We start to prioritize others' opinions over our own desires, goals, and values. This makes it almost impossible to form a solid sense of self because we're too busy trying to fit into an image that wasn't even created by us. We become chameleons, constantly changing ourselves to fit the environment or the people we're around. While this may offer temporary moments of connection or approval, it's not sustainable. Eventually, we become disconnected from our true selves and feel as though we are living a life that isn't ours. This is why so many people experience midlife crises or feelings of regret later on in life. They've spent so much time chasing the approval of others that they've lost sight of their own dreams, desires, and purpose. The tragedy of this is that when you're chasing approval, you're not really living for yourself. You're living for someone else's version of who you should be. And in doing so, you rob yourself of the opportunity to experience the fullness of life on your own terms. Instead of making decisions based on what you truly want, you make decisions based on what you think will get you the approval you crave. And every time you do that, you create a small invisible debt within yourself. A debt to your own authenticity, a debt to your own dreams. And as this debt grows, so does the distance between who you are and who you're pretending to be. The irony is that the approval you seek is often not even as important as you think. Most of the time, people are too caught up in their own lives to scrutinize yours as much as you fear they do. We think people are constantly watching and judging us, but the reality is they're probably too focused on their own struggles and insecurities to notice. What's more, the approval we receive from others is often conditioned on how well we fit into their expectations. It's a false sense of validation based on who we are pretending to be, not who we truly are. The worst part of this endless chase is that it keeps us trapped in a cycle of doubt and insecurity. Even when we get the approval we crave, it doesn't bring the lasting fulfillment we hope for. It's a brief high that fades quickly, leaving us hungry for more. The approval of others never satisfies the deeper, more profound need for self-acceptance. The moment we stop looking for validation outside ourselves is the moment we begin to free ourselves from this endless pursuit. When we stop chasing approval and start living for ourselves, we reclaim our power. By learning to trust ourselves and make decisions based on our own values and desires, we unlock the potential for a life that is truly our own. This shift from seeking external validation to embracing internal validation marks the beginning of a profound transformation. We begin to build confidence from within, develop a deeper connection to our authentic self, and experience a sense of freedom that can't be taken away by the changing opinions of others. The target you've been chasing is a mirage. The approval you seek is not the prize. It's the confidence and self-respect you cultivate within yourself that will truly set you free. When we live our lives in pursuit of approval, one of the most dangerous consequences is that we begin to silence our inner voice. We are born with an innate sense of who we are, what we want, and what drives us. As children, we follow our instincts, speak our truths, and chase our dreams without the heavy burden of self-doubt. But as we grow older, we are gradually conditioned to look to others for validation, to conform to societal expectations, and to measure our worth against external standards. As a result, we begin to ignore the whispers of our true selves. We suppress our desires, our creativity, and our individuality in favor of seeking approval from the people around us. And as we do this, we lose touch with the very essence of who we are. This suppression is not a small thing. When you begin to live for others, when you start shaping your actions and decisions based on what others expect of you, you begin to disconnect from your authentic self. Your thoughts, emotions, and aspirations are gradually replaced by what you think will earn you praise or acceptance. You become less in touch with your core values and more concerned with fitting into someone else's mold. Over time, you may begin to feel as though you're living a life that isn't truly yours. The things you once loved and dreamed about begin to fade into the background, and in their place you become preoccupied with pleasing others. This process is insidious because it often happens slowly, almost imperceptibly. You don't wake up one morning and decide to abandon your dreams. It happens bit by bit with each small concession you make to someone else's desires or expectations. It starts with simple things, a decision to go along with what others want because you want them to like you, a choice to avoid rocking the boat, or a moment when you choose not to speak up because you're afraid of being judged. At first, these choices seem harmless. After all, it's only natural to want to be liked and accepted. But as these compromises accumulate, they begin to take a toll. Each time you ignore your own desires to appease someone else. You distance yourself from your authentic self, burying your true voice deeper beneath layers of doubt, fear, and conformity. The tragedy here is that when you suppress your inner voice for long enough, you start to lose the ability to hear it at all. The subtle whispers that once guided you become drowned out by the constant clamor of external expectation. You forget what it feels like to act from a place of genuine passion, and instead you start making decisions based on the fear of what others might think. You may find yourself saying yes when you want to say no, doing things that don't resonate with your values, or pursuing goals that don't actually fulfill you, simply because you've learned to seek approval instead of listening to your heart. The consequences of silencing your inner voice go far beyond just feeling disconnected from yourself. It can lead to a profound sense of dissatisfaction and emptiness. You may find yourself achieving outward success, getting the promotion, earning the accolades, receiving the praise, yet still feeling unfulfilled, as if something is missing, because despite external recognition, You are no longer in alignment with your true self. You may have all the external markers of success, but deep inside you feel like a stranger in your own life. This is the danger of living for the approval of others. You can end up achieving everything you thought you wanted, only to realize that it was never really what you needed in the first place. Furthermore, silencing your inner voice doesn't just affect your sense of fulfillment. It can also prevent you from fully realizing your potential. Your true self holds the key to your greatest creativity, your most profound insights, and your most powerful ideas. When you stop listening to that voice, you stifle your own growth. You limit your ability to innovate, take risks, and push boundaries because you're constantly trying to fit into a box that others have created for you. In a world that is constantly evolving, staying true to yourself is what allows you to grow, adapt, and thrive. But if you constantly look to others for approval, you will forever be chasing someone else's dream, never truly exploring your own. When you're not in touch with your inner voice, it becomes much harder to make authentic decisions. You might begin to doubt your instincts, second-guess your choices, and feel lost in a sea of conflicting opinions. This can lead to a sense of paralysis, where you feel stuck in a life that isn't your own, unable to make a decision or take a meaningful step forward. The longer you suppress your true voice, the more difficult it becomes to reconnect with it. But even worse, you may not even realize that you've lost touch with it. You might think you're making decisions for yourself, but if those decisions are motivated by a desire for approval, then they're not truly yours. They're shaped by someone else's expectations, fears, and values. It's not just the big decisions that are affected. When you silence your inner voice, the small, everyday choices also become influenced by external validation. We give away our true potential, replacing it with a facade that may garner temporary approval but never genuine respect. Think about the individuals in history who are most admired. They are often the ones who went against the grain, who challenged the status quo, and who followed their own path rather than seeking approval from others. Think of figures like Steve Jobs, who revolutionized the tech world by staying true to his vision, even when others doubted him, or Maya Angelou, whose raw honesty in her writing and speeches earned her the admiration of millions. These individuals didn't gain respect because they sought it, they gained it because they stayed true to themselves, regardless of the criticism or opposition they faced. Their authenticity spoke louder than any approval they could have received from others. Furthermore, the respect that comes from living authentically is not fleeting or conditional. It's built on a foundation of consistency and integrity. When you live as your true self, others know that what they see is what they get. There's no pretense, no hidden agenda, no fear of being exposed. Sight. This kind of openness fosters trust and loyalty because people feel they can rely on you to be genuine and transparent. On the other hand, when you constantly shift to fit the expectations of others, it's hard to build any lasting respect. People might offer approval in the moment, but they can sense when it's not authentic, when you're simply playing a role. Over time, this creates a sense of disconnection, and any respect you do receive will be shallow and temporary. In a world where superficial validation is often prized over true connection, authenticity stands out as a rare and powerful force. People respect those who are not afraid to be vulnerable, who share their truths even when it's difficult, and who prioritize their integrity above the approval of others. Authenticity is magnetic. It attracts respect not through force, but through sheer presence. People gravitate toward those who exude confidence in their own identity, not because they're trying to impress anyone, but because they are comfortable in their own skin. This kind of respect is far more valuable than any approval you could earn by molding yourself to meet someone else's expectations. It's the kind of respect that lasts, that creates meaningful connections, and that empowers you to live a life that is fully aligned with your true self. Living authentically not only earns respect from others, but it also cultivates self-respect. When you align your actions with your true values, you develop a deep sense of pride and self-worth. There's an internal validation that comes with being true to yourself, a quiet, steady confidence that comes from knowing you're not compromising your integrity for anyone or anything. This internal respect is the foundation of a strong and resilient character. It's what allows you to stand tall in the face of criticism, to walk away from situations that don't serve your values, and to continue pursuing your goals even when others don't understand or approve. The deeper you go into the process of living authentically, the more you realize that respect isn't something you have to beg for or chase. It's something you earn naturally by showing up as yourself. The more you honor your own truth, the more others will respect you, even if they don't fully agree with you or understand your choices. This is because authenticity speaks to something deeper within people, a recognition of your courage, your honesty, and your strength to be yourself in a world that often encourages conformity. Respect is not something that can be demanded or faked. It's something that is earned through actions, through consistency, and through the unwavering commitment to live according to your own values. When you stop chasing approval and start living for yourself, you'll find that respect follows naturally. We start living in reaction to others rather than taking proactive control over our own lives. We let the opinions and desires of others dictate how we spend our time, what we focus on, and even how we feel about ourselves. It's as if we are being pulled along by an invisible current, helplessly trying to keep our heads above water, constantly responding to the tides of approval and disapproval. The danger of this reactive existence is that it robs us of our agency. It leaves us feeling as though we have no control over our own destiny, as though we are merely a reflection of the opinions of others. This disempowerment can leave us feeling small, insignificant, and invisible in our own lives. Over time, we may lose sight of our own goals and dreams as we become too focused on the need to satisfy the expectations of others. The freedom that comes with living for yourself is one of the most profound experiences you can have. When you stop seeking approval and start trusting your own instincts, you begin to reclaim your power. You make decisions based on your desires, your values, and your unique perspective, not because someone else told you it was the right thing to do. The weight that you've been carrying, constantly trying to meet the expectations of others, lifts, and you are free to pursue what truly matters to you. Living for yourself means that you are no longer bound by the judgments of others. You no longer feel the need to conform to a set of standards that don't align with who you are. You can move through life with confidence, knowing that you are living authentically, regardless of whether others approve of your choices. This doesn't mean that you become indifferent to others' opinions. It simply means that you stop letting those opinions dictate your sense of self-worth. Instead of seeking approval, you seek alignment with your own values, knowing that when you are true to yourself, the right people will respect and appreciate you for who you are. As you begin to live for yourself, you'll notice a shift in your relationships. You will attract people who value you for your authentic self, not for the version of you that you've created to fit their expectations. True connection is born from authenticity. When you show up as your real self without fear or pretense, you create the space for genuine relationships to flourish. These relationships are built on mutual respect, shared values, and a deep understanding of each other's true essence. Moreover, living for yourself brings clarity. The constant noise of trying to please others fades away, and you begin to see the path that is right for you. You become more decisive, more intentional in your actions, and more focused on what truly matters. You stop second-guessing yourself and begin to trust your own judgment. The confidence that comes with living authentically is like a beacon, guiding you through life's challenges and helping you navigate difficult decisions with ease. Instead of worrying about what others think, you move forward with conviction, knowing that you are on the right path for you. This confidence also extends to your ability to take risks. When you stop living for the approval of others, you give yourself permission to step outside of your comfort zone, to try new things, and to fail without the fear of judgment. The fear of failure dissipates when you know that your worth is not tied to the opinions of others. You understand that failure is a natural part of growth, and that trying, failing, and learning is part of the process. This mindset allows you to embrace challenges with an open heart, knowing that the journey is more important than the destination. Finally, living for yourself allows you to create a life that is truly fulfilling. You begin to align your daily actions with your deepest desires and goals. Instead of living for the approval of others, you make choices based on what will bring you joy, peace, and a sense of purpose. This shift leads to a life that is rich with meaning and satisfaction. The ultimate freedom comes from realizing that you do not need the approval of others to be happy, successful, or worthy. When you stop chasing approval, you begin to live for yourself. And in doing so, you unlock the power to create a life that is full of purpose, fulfillment, and genuine connection. When we look at the process of living for the approval of others, we realize that it often leads us to build our identity based on external factors. As children, we develop a sense of self by exploring the world, making mistakes, and learning about who we are through trial and error. But as we grow older, we start to become influenced by society, our families, and the people around us. Their views and opinions start to shape the way we see ourselves. We may begin to believe that our value is determined by how others perceive us. We start to adopt the beliefs of those around us, molding ourselves into someone who is more acceptable, more palatable to the external world. This constant need to measure up, to gain approval, creates a false sense of identity. We become more focused on fitting into the expectations of others rather than expressing who we truly are. The problem with this is that we can never fully meet the standards of everyone around us. People's expectations are constantly changing, and they are subjective. What one person values or approves of may not align with what someone else thinks is right. This creates a never-ending cycle of striving, where we can never feel fully satisfied because we are constantly chasing something that is always just out of our reach. At one point, we may feel that we've done everything right, received the accolades, done the right things, conformed to the right norms, but it's never enough. The approval we've earned from one person or group may not be the approval we seek from someone else. The result is a feeling of instability, of never being truly good enough because we are constantly shifting our behavior to meet the needs of others. When we live for the approval of others, we also give up our ability to define our own success. Success becomes measured by someone else's standards, whether it's the opinions of a boss, a partner, or society at large. This creates a sense of external pressure, where we feel as though we are only successful if others acknowledge our achievements, but success is deeply personal. What success looks like for one person may be different from what success looks like for another. By giving away our right to define success, we lose control over our own life's direction. Instead of setting personal goals based on what excites or fulfills us, we focus on goals that are driven by the desire to be recognized and admired by others. The danger here is that these external markers of success, such as wealth, status, or approval, are often fleeting and can leave us feeling hollow once we attain them. They don't offer the lasting satisfaction or fulfillment that comes from living in alignment with our true desires and values. The quest for approval can also negatively impact our mental health. When we are constantly trying to meet the expectations of others, we are often juggling multiple personas, trying to be what others want us to be, and simultaneously suppressing aspects of our true selves in order to fit in. This can lead to feelings of anxiety, stress, and even depression. It's exhausting to live a life where you're always performing, always measuring up, and always adjusting to fit the mold that others have set for you. The pressure to conform creates internal tension, where we feel like we're not allowed to be our true selves. This kind of emotional and psychological strain takes a toll over time, often leading to burnout and a sense of isolation. What is more, the need for external approval undermines our confidence and self-esteem. As we look outward for validation, we internalize the idea that our worth is dependent on how others perceive us. This makes us incredibly vulnerable to rejection and criticism, because if someone disapproves of us, we feel as though we failed or are unworthy. This constant fear of judgment can prevent us from taking risks, from expressing our true selves, and from pursuing our own passions. We begin to question our instincts and second-guess our decisions because we are too focused on whether others will approve. The more we live for the approval of others, the more we disconnect from our inner voice and the less confidence we have in our own judgment. Furthermore, living for approval leads to a life of missed opportunities. When we're too focused on what others think, we tend to play it safe, avoiding risks that might lead to rejection or criticism. We might shy away from pursuing a career we're passionate about because it doesn't align with the expectations of our family or society. We might not go after a dream because we're afraid of how others will view us if we fail. In doing so, we hold ourselves back from the growth and fulfillment that come with taking risks and pursuing our own path. The need for approval traps us in a cycle of playing small, staying within the boundaries of what's comfortable and limiting our potential. True fulfillment comes not from staying within the lines, but from stepping outside of them and embracing the unknown, even when it's scary. But when we are living for approval, we are unwilling to venture into that territory because we fear disapproval. Living for ourselves, on the other hand, opens the door to personal growth, authentic connections, and lasting fulfillment. When we live for ourselves, we take back control of our own narrative. We begin to make choices based on our values and desires, not based on what others expect from us. This doesn't mean that we stop caring about the people in our lives or their opinions. It simply means that we no longer let those opinions define who we are or how we live our lives. We become more attuned to our own needs and wants, and we trust ourselves enough to make decisions that align with our truth. Living for ourselves also fosters resilience. When we stop seeking approval, we become less vulnerable to the opinions of others. We realize that the value of our lives does not depend on how others see us, but on how we see ourselves. This shift in perspective helps us become more confident in our decisions and more comfortable with who we are. When we no longer feel the need to fit into a predefined mold, we allow ourselves the space to explore, experiment, and fail without fear of judgment. This resilience is what allows us to face challenges with grace and determination, knowing that our worth is not tied to how others perceive us. Moreover, living for ourselves leads to a greater sense of freedom. The pressure to conform to societal expectations can be stifling, as it creates a constant feeling of being trapped in a role we did not choose. When we stop living for approval, we free ourselves from the confines of these expectations. We can pursue our passions, develop our own sense of identity, and create a life that is truly ours. This freedom allows us to be creative, to express ourselves fully, and to live authentically. Instead of trying to meet the demands of others, we begin to design a life that reflects our true desires and ambitions. Finally, living for ourselves enables us to cultivate meaningful relationships. When we stop seeking approval, we become more genuine in our interactions with others. We no longer need to put on a facade to impress people or gain their acceptance.